I know all the partners on stage there have grown their business quite significantly with AWS. Would love to learn kind of on two sides using the program on new logos or finding new clients and opportunities, and then working with your existing client base in enriching, upselling, cross-selling, finding opportunities to go deeper with current clients. So maybe Todd, we could start with you again and talk about the revenue side of this program and co-selling and co-marketing and other pieces with AWS.
Sure, it's all about revenue at the end of the day, right? So I have a kind of a differentiated view on how we acquire new clients. Let's say the first part is our joint marketing approach we have with AWS, which has been always a very strong source of net new logos for us, and for AWS, of course. So this is the part I value very much. But I have to admit that through this channel, we were able to win smaller clients, right? Smaller clients, some of them were able to grow, but it was we plugged them into our standard managed service approach, managed service offering, which we call Cloud Concierge, and this was fine for those smaller clients. When it comes to large clients and going really deep into those large clients, and I'm coming back to Germany again, for example, car manufacturers, which are very significant in that market. There we have had already a large footprint, but with the help of AWS, we were able to extend it by large. So what I'm saying is similar to what I've said before. We started with some lighthouse activities 10 years ago, which were really new for those clients. And those activities have then spread around. For example, the connected car topic. It started as a small lighthouse project for one of the clients. It spread that much that basically now we are managing for that client the whole application landscape, and those applications are all somehow into the connected car space. Yeah? Some of them managing the data inflow, data outflow, some of them managing the authorizations, managing the in-car functions, and so on. Yeah? So this is very, I think this was very crucial. This led to a significant increase in revenues on our side at those large clients.
That's great. I love the details on the different industries there and how that helps. Srini, looking at Rackspace, kind of on the new logo side, as well as going deeper in your current clients, expanding your portfolio. How have you found success using the AWS Managed Services program?
So first of all, from a new logo standpoint, right? I came to Rackspace about 3 years ago. By the way, I was at IBM for very long. It's part of that Kindle spinoff. I came to Rackspace about 3 years ago, and essentially what we did was we put in place like a whole lean startup approach, right? So for new logos, we always wanted to start with what we are good at, right? Like we're not going to go try to be one of our competition, but what we're good at is we understand the technology, we understand workloads, we understand how to operate it in this space. So we started to look for workloads that actually gave us that new edge. So we started, as an example, a couple of years ago with healthcare, and said for healthcare providers, Epic workloads are one where it's a market where it's a tough market to crack, but at the same time, if you can do it and do it well, you're able to actually go out and drive that. So we went out and did a small thing on Epic. It worked well. Now it is a pretty big part of our business for us. It's spun up, and we've got behind Epic, we're the next biggest hosting for Epic workloads in this. So that approach has worked extremely well for us. And the latest one that we've done that actually does leverage the AWS spaces, when we launched. My day job is I run the Foundry for AI by Rackspace. So, and we launched the Foundry a couple of years ago, and essentially now have gone out and through our very unique approach to having people understand the differences between training, inferencing, and fine-tuning workloads and what it means to deploy it onto different models. And really, we can get into the large language model debates and things like that, but it's really when you put it into an inferencing, what does it actually mean for you? That's actually helped. And in about 18 months, we've got We've done about 70 engagements, very closely working with AWS. Half of those came out of with AWS. And now we're taking it to the managed services place where we're introducing something called Elastic AI, which is, if you think about day 2 for AI, the minute you put an AI solution into production, it's already got tech debt. Knowledge is outdated. You've got to keep updating it every single day. But the managed services for AI is going to look very different than managed services for traditional applications. So we're hoping that in the early part of second quarter, we're going to introduce Elastic AI, which is now we've got enough into production that we can start releasing that behind it. But AWS has been lockstep with us all through. They've given us the early views to what you guys are coming up with. We just got an early preview of some of the security stuff that's coming out, which is fantastic, right? We want to hitch our wagon to that and keep riding it with AWS.
That's fantastic. Pankaj, in Kyndryl's view, how are you earning new clients? How are you going deeper in the vast client base that you have using AWS and the managed services program?
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. I think you're right. So for the initial phase of our journey till now as an independent company, our focus has been to dig deeper into our current customer base, because we were already working with the largest corporations. And in that initial phase, actually, we have really worked very proactively with the AWS team and have benefited from the MSP program. I think for example, we created this MSP framework based on the well-architected framework that AWS has. So that has really helped our teams to get a best-in-the-breed program for our customers. And as you know, we manage some of the most complex workloads, on mainframe. We are the largest mainframe provider in the world, largest VMware customer, VMware provider in the world. We manage large SAP estates for some of the largest corporations. So we were able to look at those complex estates. For example, with SAP, last year we were the second largest GSI with AWS in terms of the AWS consumption on SAP. So we identified those workloads where it was really complex, where we really are differentiated in the way we go to the market, combining with the best in the breed practices of AWS, also looking at the go-to-market programs that are available for MSPs, looking at the migration acceleration program for MSPs. We actually utilized all those programs. So we, in the team that we have within Kyndryl, we are very closely looking at the programs, the latest programs that are offered, embedding that into the way we respond to the RFPs, the proposals that go out, so that we make sure that we are able to, incorporate whatever is available from AWS. At the same time, there is an account mapping exercise that's going on, strategic planning for each of the regions and geographies. So we have 9 major countries in Kyndryl. So very federated structure in the way we work across the globe. So we have a very customized way of incorporating that within the existing customer base. And now as we move towards our growth path, going forward, our focus now has been also on new customer, alignment in terms of looking at those greenfield customers where we may not have that much of presence. And we have a account planning exercise that we do with AWS at the start of the year in each of the major regions. And for example, in Japan, it has been a major success story for us. There's a lot of positive case studies and use cases that we have got from Japan, in the US, of course, in Europe. And we are replicating that. So what we do is we try to see the best that is coming out of one country and then replicating it across multiple countries in our federated structure that we have. So really, I think we have benefited a lot from the existing customers and now moving to the new customer base of that. Yeah.
That's some great stats there, and walking across industries and use cases and everything else. Jonathan, what are you seeing in terms of winning new clients? You mentioned it earlier in terms of your growth in those early days. But now, with a big client base, how are you, further enriching those, client outcomes and things like that? How are you working with AWS's managed services program?
Sure, Jay. So again, I go back to 2013, right? So as one of the earlier adopters, I think the MSP program really played a big part in terms of our success. Pankaj said it best earlier. When we were starting, we don't know what we don't know, obviously, right? We talked to our customers, but again, very early stages, no one really knew what they wanted. So for us, MSP program really helped us in terms of structuring what managed services would look like, I mean, you mentioned the well-architected framework. That's exactly also how we started. At that time, there were 5 pillars. Now there are 6, right? So if you talk about the 5 pillars, that's now literally the mandate or mantra that we have in terms of how we run MS with all our customers. So I think that's the first one, really putting that structure in place. The second one is, again, because we were the first in Asia to be a managed services competency, AWS was able to help us, I guess, put us on the map, I guess. We do our own prospecting, obviously, with customers, but with AWS's help that early on, letting customers know that we are a managed services competency partner and you could trust a company like eCloud Valley, then that really helps us acquire more customers, right? And lastly, I think on the third point, I think it's very important, the partnership in terms of having direct access to AWS technical expertise, SAs, technical account managers, that really helped in terms of the roadmap, like you said, Srini, earlier, right? Really establishing what that roadmap is. I mean, every year in reInvent, there are hundreds and thousands of releases, features, offerings. I mean, how could you pick, right? But because we work together very closely with AWS, then we were able to really handpick which ones are most apt for our business and for what we hear from customers. So I think it's really that, right? I think those are the 3 key, I believe, the key things that we really worked with AWS on.